So certainly, I would say the hallmark of 40K for this edition compared to other editions. Yes, slightly different rules. We've got a couple of new armies out there. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, is the speed, in a good way, the diligence, and the attention that Games Workshop is playing to make sure that every army, every faction is not only updated, but really is rolling out in a timely manner. I mean, we've got Space Wolves, we've got Orcs, a lot of things pushing out there. It is a good time to play 40K, regardless of what army you're playing. So with that in mind, with all these new releases, and that's not to even talk about kind of the new armies and sub-factions coming out, and sub-games like Kill Team and things like that, I wanted to share with you my formula that I utilize when evaluating a unit. Because we have this idea in 40K, a unit, is it good? Does it work? How does it compare? Is it powerful? Should it be in the meta? Is it an auto-include? An auto-include is a unit that is so good in the rules that doesn't matter what you're running, what you're playing, what point value you're playing on there, you are playing this unit because it is that good. And of course, every edition has certain auto-include units. So in evaluating an army or in evaluating a unit, the first thing I do, of course, is read the entry on it. And I just read it, and what are my first thoughts? Not good or bad, first thoughts. What points stand out that are good? What points that stand out that are not so good? And if I had, I mean, you could build an army this way, but I think to myself, if I had an army consisting just of this unit, I mean, forget about the rules aside, right? Just an army of Land Raiders on there, 10, 15, 20 Land Raiders. Games Workshop would love that, right? How would I utilize it? How would I utilize it? That, in my opinion, is the first unlock, the first set of questions. And that's going to give us an idea of how this unit operates, and based on our play style, our player personality, how would we utilize this? So I think about that for a little bit. And then the second set of questions, hyper-identify. We're not even up to using it or not. Hyper-identify what makes this unit good and what makes the unit bad, the attributes of it. So good might be, hey, look, it has above average toughness. It has above average initiative on there. It has a lot of attacks. The baseline I use for this, and this is the DNA. We've looked at this in a previous podcast. The DNA of 40K is Space Marines. The DNA of 40K, I imagine if you were able to open it up and layer it over, 40K is based off Rogue Trader. Not the role-playing game, the original kind of incarnation of 40K. And the rules of that in terms of a D6 system, a wound chart, a matrix of psychic powers, and the primary attributes. Now, we don't have minor heroes and major heroes anymore, but essentially that is 40K. And Games Workshop has not released new versions of it. They've released layers over on that. And a lot of things that should have been corrected, this is not a criticism, a lot of things that should have been corrected over the years, literally years, over the decades, they were not. So if you go back and you obtain a copy, a PDF of Rogue Trader, you're going to see a lot of crazy things in there. Of course, that was the first incarnation of the game. But you're going to see this DNA. You're going to see it, bits and pieces popping up in every edition, the layers of 40K, whatever it is, 5, 6, 7, moving forward. So essentially the DNA of 40K with Space Marines, what I mean by that is the Space Marine stat line, anything that goes above it is inherently better. If you can take it in enough numbers or get it into the proper position on the table, because 40K is a D6 based system that does not give you a high enough spread of dice. So if you spam enough dice, you can break through and defeat any unit. Now, it's easier to take something in numbers, of course, than it is to use tactically. And it's not a criticism or play style either. I try that all the time. I'd like both numbers but we have limited resources with what we can do. So when I'm evaluating a unit in the current incarnation of 40K, I'm looking and saying, what parts are better than a Space Marine, significantly better on there? Those pieces, where can I apply them? What parts of the game can I apply them in the movement phase, in the shooting phase, in the assault phase, psychic power phase-wise, or with deployment and different options, bringing different special rules. They used to call them universal special rules, right? Different special rules to the game. How can I utilize that? The second piece, the places where the unit is deficient. And deficient might be, the unit might be great. It might have a lot of great attributes. The deficiency might be it's freaking expensive, or I'm limited to what I can take. You know, a perfect example of a limitation. Back in the day, we used to have stuff like 0-1 with obliterators, where you could only take one of these units in the Force org chart because they were so good, in theory. Games Workshop, with their poor game design, was limiting you with that, rather than giving the opponent's abilities to counter. We still kind of have 0-1. It's called named characters. It's called certain special select units on there. So when I'm looking at the special units, that's a liability in there. I have one Lysander. You can only be in one place at one time, you know, with the game. So the question with a deficiency in the unit, and deficiency could be a low toughness, it could be any number of things in there. The question now that I ask is, how can I prevent you, my opponent, from exploiting that? So if it's a unit that is weak and slow, can I make it faster by giving it psychic powers to boost it, or some sort of transportation? That means the weakness is mitigated. If I can't mitigate the weakness, right, the unit, I'm trying to think of a unit. You guys will get it in the comments, right? It's really, really late here at night, and I should be sleeping, but I was watching some battle reports, some Necron stuff, and evaluating Necron units, and that's what really got me started on this. I'm like, you know what? Let's get some of these ideas down while they're kind of stream of consciousness in here. So I can't think of a unit right now, but you can think of a unit in 40K that the deficiency of it, it's a slow unit. There's nothing you can do to make it faster. You can't mech it up. You can't jack it up. You can't psych it up. What do? Well, that's something your opponent can exploit. So the way that you get around that, the question to ask is, are there other units that you are going to take in your army that are going to keep your opponent so busy where they say, look, I want to shoot that slow unit, or I want to get to it, or I want to counter it, but I can't, because in theory, Fritz is keeping me busy with all this other stuff that's out there. The third series of questions I then ask, how is this unit going to fit into my army? Is this a unit that I want to play? And by that I mean, does it just have some cool abilities? And it just looks fun on the table. So maybe I want to play it that way. And you have to know your player personality. You have to know your player play style. And whatever it is, it's legit and it's good. And you should not feel like if someone says that's not the way to play 40K, that's junk. That's absolutely not true. I play against opponents that, and I mean this in a good way, they're WAC, WAAC, win at all costs. They view 40K as competition, as tournaments, as not a war game, but a game of competition. Maybe almost like playing cards. All that matters is winning. That's it. Win. So the units they take are ruthlessly vetted and ruthlessly integrated and brutal on there. Now you might have someone on the exact opposite side that says, I'm thinking of one player at the club. He's been playing Ravenwing and Deathwing 15 years, something crazy like that, 12, 15 years. Doesn't matter how good they are or how bad they are, or if the codex gets updated, or what Games Workshop changes or doesn't change, he is committed to playing these armies through the various editions in there. So wherever you fall in between those two extremes, you need to know this unit. Am I going to have fun with it? Is it something I want to play? Does it fit into the theme of my army? How am I going to utilize it? You need to see and come to that conclusion, because ultimately you need to have whatever your version of fun is with 40K, fun with every single unit on the table, because that's going to integrate, that's going to mesh, and then from there we can start to build out our army. We haven't even gotten to list building yet. This is just kind of the pre-thing. You look at a unit, the questions I ask, that checklist, as we then move into list building in 40K.